going. Are we still waiting for Gilroy?
She's here.
Oh, no, there's my friend. Hey, Rebecca. Okay, now we have a quorum, right?
Yes.
Okay, then let's start again. Thank you all for being here to the Silicon Valley Habitat Agency Governing Board meeting, June 30th, 3:08. Let's do the call to order. Roll call.
Armendariz. Evers. Here. Cohen. Brown. Marks. Midian.
Semidian here.
Yeah.
Venus. Here. I think I see her. Venus, are you with us as well? Here. Thank you.
So we have a quorum, huh? Yeah. Then a report from the chair. I have nothing to report. And so we'll move forward to the report from the Public Advisory Commission and Mr. Lerner, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Reed Lerner. I'm chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee. We last met on Thursday, May 2nd, and we had 4 items on the agenda. Real quickly, the first one was the fiscal year 23-24 revenue and expenditures
Would
report.
you mind speaking to the microphone that they can hear you everywhere? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Thank you. The first item was the fiscal year 23-24 revenue and expenditures report, along with the review of the budget for 24 and 25. The second item that we just had on the agenda was the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan annual report, which is item 10 on your agenda today. The third item on our that we discussed was to nominate Mr. Sullivan to an award that the Greenbelt Alliance has called Hidden Heroes. And we'll hear whether that nomination was successful next week. And then our meeting ended with a report from Mr. Sullivan on the status of the habitat plan and agency. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lerner. Well, congratulations to the nomination as well, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you. We'll move on to public comments for items that are not on today's agenda. Anyone in the public like to speak up?
No, I have no speakers.
And no speaker cards either. Then we'll move on to the consent calendar. I was asked to pull agenda item number 4 out of the consent calendar. It wasn't intended to be part of the consent calendar. It should be part of regular business. So we'll take that right after the consent calendar. Do any board members wish to pull any other items from the consent calendar? Since I can't see you in the room, please
I
speak
show
up.
no hands.
Anyone from the public like to pull an item?
But no speakers. No.
And we have neither. Then to get a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar, all items from 1 through 9 except number 4.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Armendariz.
Yes.
Evers. Cohen.
Aye.
Midian.
Semidian, aye.
Green. And Arenas.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Then we'll move forward to agenda item number 4, which would be to approve the 2024-2025 salary increase as proposed. Do we get a report? Briefly.
Very briefly, the implementation board did an evaluation of Mr. Sullivan and is recommending the increases that are stated in terms of a 5% merit increase and a 5% a 5% salary increase and a 5% one-time bonus, which does not compound. But because the implementation board doesn't meet again for several months, it's coming before the governing board.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this item by any board members? Any questions from anyone in the public?
No.
Then I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved on item number 4.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Armandaris,
Yes.
Burrs,
Yes.
Ryan,
Aye.
Semidion,
Smitty and I.
Ring,
Yes,
and Arenas.
Yes.
thank you. And I'm sure I'll speak on behalf of our board. Mr. Sullivan, thank you so much for everything you do. You probably deserve more than that, but it's not my money, so we have to treat it well.
Thank you very much for the kind words. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And keep up the good work. Then we'll move on to, and by the way, that motion carried, of course. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan fiscal year 2023 annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you see the report there? I'm not sure if it's showing up on this screen, but not.
Just 1 second. They're just.
You can't, oh, good. And let's make sure it's really, yeah, it's working. Okay, we're there.
And the same for you, if you please can
Speak up a little bit there.
Everyone can hear you well.
No, this is actually good, being like this. Thank you. Okay, so I'm here to provide you all with an overview of the fiscal year 23 annual report. This goes from middle of 22, calendar year 22 to the middle of calendar year 23. The report captures all activities in the reporting year, but also cumulatively through the first 10 full years of the Habitat Plan. The 10 years is, the 10-year mark now is 20% of the way through our permit term. So we're 20% of the way through. That's probably a good point to revisit requirements and take stock of the plan and determine how well it's working. So we've issued take authorization and collected fees on land cover impacts for 18 projects within the reporting year. And cumulatively, we've covered a total of 410 projects in the plan area over the last 10 years. That's about 40 per year, which makes this a little lighter than the average year. In this case, a smaller number of projects translates to a smaller area of impact. That wouldn't always be the case if you had, for example, fewer projects with a larger footprint. You might see more acres of impact within a reporting year. But for this reporting year, only about 100 acres of permanent impact occurred. And we've been averaging about 270 acres of impact prior to this year. Here are a few examples of private development that was covered during the reporting year. The two images on the left are new warehouse projects. One of them is in Gilroy, one of them is in San Jose. And on the right is a new single family residence that was constructed in the unincorporated part of the county. And here are a couple of public project examples. On the right, County Parks, a County Parks project which was covered was an improvement to the Coyote Creek Trail near Morgan Hill. On the left, we are covering multiple phases of Valley Water's Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project. This phase for the FOCP includes construction of a new outlet tunnel, which was impacting downstream habitat from the dam face. Construction of the new outlet tunnel will continue through 2023 this year through 2024, and the seismic retrofit, the big project, will occur between 2025 and 2032. These projects and their impacts have historically been tracked by the Habitat Agency in a couple of ways. First, we had an analog database using a Microsoft Access program, which tracked raw acres and stream length of permanent and temporary impacts. And then second, we had a GIS database, which had been tracking spatial impacts to modeled habitat. The GIS does not always match the analog data because a single parcel can include multiple layers of modeled habitat, whereas the actual impacts of the pay land cover fees are only based on a single polygon on a map. So keeping the two databases at separate was at first intentional, but with new technology, we're able to combine them. So one Esri GIS database can now track single layer land cover impacts, multi-layer modeled habitat impacts, and even reserve system build out to demonstrate compliance with our permits. It's a brave new world. Within the reporting year, we kicked off the first year of compliance reporting, which relied partially on this database. This was kind of a design soft opening. You don't want everybody rushing the door the first day. And the system worked well enough to warrant the complete shift to the platform, which is currently underway. Thanks to Santa Clara County Parks, we enrolled Calero County Park in the reporting year. It contributes 2,815 acres of incredible habitat to the reserve system. We also coordinated the purchase of O'Connell Ranch in Pacheco Pass, and this is immediately upstream in the Pacheco Creek from Casa de Fruta. And some smaller properties, but nonetheless important. We picked up 2 private property purchases in Coyote Valley, and we have finally protected 200 acres of occupied burrowing owl habitat in San Jose. The city of San Jose used our land in lieu of fees provision to transfer this easement to us. So it guarantees perpetual protection of the few resident owls that we have left in the plan area. In addition to the 5 acquisition sites mentioned in the report, 3 new properties were acquired between the end of the reporting year and the time of this report. Currently, the reserve system now consists of 15,000 acres of important conservation lands. With the land acquisitions we have finalized, we are in good shape for meeting our stay-ahead provisions for natural communities. We can see we've topped off a conservation commitment in all of them. The figures above each column represent the number of acres beyond our required commitment that we've achieved. So you can see we're comfortably ahead in all of them. Now that all these acres are protected, we've had to pick up the pace on land management. In the reporting year, we doubled our land management crew from 1 to 2. Julie King, our principal land manager, was joined in the reporting year by Matt Fogarty, our new senior land management specialist. And Julie and Matt have been busy, first assessing the condition of our reserve system properties, then assessing land management needs by priority. They've been fixing fences, gates, water infrastructure. They've been managing grazing operations, removing trash, eradicating invasive species of plants and wildlife. They've been surveying for our covered species, tracking wildlife, and collecting native seeds. And they've been doing all this with a smile. No new restoration projects began during the reporting year, but 4 restoration projects, previous restoration projects, or completed, I should say, restoration projects, continued in their post-construction monitoring periods. We're supposed to monitor for 5 to 10 years for each restoration site we complete. And 2 new restoration projects broke ground just after the end of the reporting year, but I'll mention them today. These 2 projects were successfully constructed thanks to the heroic efforts of another new hire during the reporting year, that of our senior restoration ecologist, Nathan Hale. This is the Pacheco Creek Restoration Project. You heard a lot about it leading up to it, but done now. It's now completed, and in its first year of monitoring, the project has restored almost 2 miles of Pacheco Creek, 10 acres of rare sycamore alluvial woodland. It's also improved aquatic habitat within a large pond and created 4/10 of an acre of seasonal wetland. In these images, you could see a newly constructed high flow channel at the time of construction, and then again after several rain events earlier this year. So that's the same spot you're looking at there in the images. You're now looking at on the right there at a new stream channel, which holds back floodwaters, supports new growth of native vegetation, and will improve both habitat and water quality. Just a beautiful picture. The Pajaro River Agricultural Preserve Riparian Restoration Project, that's a mouthful that I won't repeat, is near the confluence of the Pacheco River and Llagas Creek. Like Pacheco, it was completed at the end of the year, end of last calendar year, I should say, with plant installation that continued through the spring. The site has been significantly impacted, like a lot of properties down there, by intensive agricultural use. The agricultural uses will continue, but they've been moved further away from the creek with a habitat buffer, essentially. The image on the lower left is prior to construction, and on the right, you can see the newly installed grass plugs just above the bank that will form kind of an understory for 6,000 plants that were installed after this picture and will eventually become 4 new acres of riparian woodland habitat. Here's a short list of ongoing work that you may not hear about regularly. In addition to the database and land management, land acquisition, restoration, we have a variety of other ongoing obligations. And here are some key metrics to track in determining our compliance with our permits for the habitat plan. As I mentioned earlier, we're 20% of the way through our 50-year permit term, yet we've already achieved, you can see the figure here, 31% of our conservation target, which includes land acquisition, enhancement, and restoration. You can see that existing open space enrollment is now at 21%. It's been 0 up until this year, up until this reporting year. So we are ahead in all the areas that matter most. We're achieving significant conservation, outpacing our requirements by an additional 40%. This is due in large part to an aggressive pursuit of grant funding, because as you can see in that second to the right column, fee funding is still lower than expected. As stated in the annual report, we're now 883 acres shy of the assumed permanent land cover impacts by this time in our permit term. In many ways, this is a good thing. Less development means more land is remaining available for habitat. Development is perhaps being refocused on existing urbanized areas. But reduced fee funding also means that we cannot pay for all the things that the habitat plan requires, and we shouldn't be required to. It's clear that the permanent impact assumptions in the plan have been overestimated for most all land cover types aside from grasslands. For example, the plan assumes that 9.4 miles of streams would be permanently impacted throughout the permit term. At 20% of the way through the permit term, we've only seen impacts to 6% of that. We've only seen impacts to 2% of willow riparian and 1% of ponds. Again, at 20% of the way through. And that's counting the early phases of Anderson Dam. Through the habitat plan amendment, we will likely adjust the conservation restoration commitments downward a little bit. That would bring actual impacts more in line with the actual conservation goals. Basically, fewer impacts will be occurring, so there should be less mitigation required. But here's a good table to illustrate the difference between assumed and real accumulation of fees over the first 10 years. On the upper table, you can see that $7.3 million is the average annual fee revenue assumed in the habitat plan. The actual revenue we're achieving is closer to $5.2 million per year on average. So that's over $2 million in difference every year and at least $21 million in unrealized revenue to date. And the lower table shows corresponding lower land cover impacts or reduced land cover impacts. I want to point out again that we are achieving our conservation goals 40% faster than anticipated, with only 70% of the funding that was anticipated. So while the funding gap is something we need to address, the good news is that the habitat plan has been tremendously successful to date, and all of our covered species are better off for it. So on to my favorite slide. If there are any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you so much for the great report and great work done. Any questions from any board members?
There you go.
I hear none. Anyone has a question from the public?
No.
I'm right here.
There you go.
No.
Well, I'll ask one question. I have to. Is it shown with data too? But my impression is over the past couple of years, I see a lot more wildlife than ever before, from ground squirrels to coyotes to bobcats to you name it. I see it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm out more maybe, or if there really is more wildlife.
That's a great question. I would love to be able to claim credit for that. Clearly, more land has been protected from development. Many of the properties that we picked up and enrolled in our reserve system had development potential. Some of them even had development proposals. So I don't know if it's led to an increase in wildlife abundance in the plan area, but certainly is not leading to any kind of a decrease in it and maybe preserving it in the rate that it is. Yeah, maybe the installation of the under the tunnel beneath Highway 17, allowing more species to move back and forth. Maybe that allows them to proliferate a little bit more, but I think it's great that you're seeing them. Happy to have them out there.
Yeah, just on Saturday, I went at the end of Palm, the coyote preserve there. So a coyote family with 4 young ones.
It's fantastic.
I've never seen that many together.
Just
right?
today, our land manager downloaded some camera trap videos from our Pacheco Creek Reserve and found documented a black bear in Pacheco Pass
Oh, interesting.
on our Pacheco Creek Reserve, which is shocking, astonishing, and wonderful all at the same time, basically. So yeah, it's a great time.
Yeah, and it seems like, the mountain lion warnings seems to be popping up all over Morgan Hill lately. That's another thing. And
Yeah, the rain the last 2 years have really helped.
yeah,
Yeah.
it seems to.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope,
We had a
hope
mountain lion in our
it's,
backyard 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
A little unnerving.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's good thing the dogs are outside.
Oh, wow.
amazing. Yeah.
And with,
I like-
with Jerry's point on bears, they're not supposed to be in the Diablo Mountains, but
No?
I'll tell that to the bear.
Yeah.
There you go.
Where he belongs.
Waiting for the wolves now, so.
Right, yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for your report.
Thank you all.
Much appreciated. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 11, O'Connell Ranch property house parcel sale.
Yes, thank you. So we acquired so initially, Jerry referred to the O'Connell Ranch acquisition in the Pacheco Pass area, and we co-acquired that property with the Conservation Fund. We bought out their interests in the property a couple months ago, and so now we're 100% owner. And we acquired a house parcel, which is the request today to grant the agency permission to sell the parcel with the house. And the estimated fair market value for that house is at 1.2 million. So we're here to request the authorize the executive officer to sign a purchase and sale agreement and a resolution approving the sale of that house parcel.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions on this topic from any board members? Mrs. Liebers?
Thank you. You might have said it, but I want to hear it again. If this house parcel sells, how much acreage is included with this parcel?
It's 35 total.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they're willing to sell all 35
Yes.
and the house? Is
Yes.
the house something that someone could live in or?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
And we feel it would be better we have a housing shortage here, and it's better for us to sell that parcel than just keep it and, allow that house to get into disrepair.
definitely.
So, we've done some repairs to it and a little bit of painting and, getting it ready to go to market if the governing board, approves this, today.
And how is the access to that property? Is it off of Hecker Pass? or-
Yeah, it's off of, it's the Pacheco Pass area.
Is it-
So, yeah, that's fine. And it's Walnut Street, I think it's what it's called, Walnut Avenue.
Okay,
So,
so it's off of,
yeah.
of actual road then?
yes, it's right near Casa de Fruta. Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Any questions from the public?
No.
Okay, then I'd like to entertain motion on agenda item number 11. Go with staff's recommendation.
So moved.
Second. Arenas.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Armendariz. Armendariz.
Yes.
Liebers.
Yes.
Cohen. Comedian.
Committee and I.
Klein.
Aye.
and Arenas.
Okay, this motion This motion carries. Thank you all. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 12. That would be the report from our executive officer, Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Spring. So I just want to give you a little update on some of the advocacy we've been doing both in Sacramento and Washington. And then I'll just go over some of the conservation highlights. Jerry touched upon some of them, so I'll be brief. We are continuing to advocate for no additional budget cuts to the Wildlife Conservation Board. And some of the recent moves by the legislature is very promising. There was $335 million being transferred to the Greenhouse Gas Fund that would be still under the control of WCB and all the good work they do, and to the state's 30 by 30 biodiversity funding. We also been advocating with our delegation and working with the California HCP Coalition to within the proposed Senate and Assembly climate bombs that there would be a earmark for NCCPs. That's still in limbo, and I'm not sure where that goes, but the coalition and I myself are still advocating for that. In addition, we reached out to the state delegation over the past week requesting that the Habitat Conservation Fund not be sunset, and will continue to fund critical conservation work across the state. Groups across both NGOs and government entities like us have been advocating for that fund not to be sunsetted. Our specific ask is that they would oppose the $45 million reservation of the HCP and the proposed or HCF and the proposed sunset of Prop 117 requirement to annually disperse $30 million to the HCF fund by doing the following: advocate for budget item 3640498 to be either removed from the budget bills or subsequently struck, and maintain opposition to the governor's proposed sunset should it regain traction in negotiations. In Washington, I was in Washington in April. We had an advocacy trip with the National HCP Coalition. I was there from the 15th to the 18th. The focus of the trip was advocating for increased funding for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Section 6 grant program, regulatory streamlining, and promoting the benefits of HCPs to our delegation, legislative committees, and administration officials. There's been some resistance in the Department of Interior to increasing the funding for the Section 6 program, which has been kind of eye-opening for all of us. There's bipartisan support for the Section 6 program. A lot of these legislative committees, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats in the majority, and in the case of this House and Senate respectively, are in support of this. But the Department of Interior seems to be more focused on funding for state parks departments across the 50 states, where the Land and Water Conservation Fund monies, the stateside monies, most of that going towards state park agencies, and we've been requesting that our poultry 26 million be increased to 40 or 50 million for a program that benefits HCPs across the entire country. So we're working in coordination with HCPs in Texas and Florida and other states across the country. It's been disappointing, but we met with Shannon Estevez, and it's one of the best meetings, who's the Assistant Secretary of Interior, and it was one of the best meetings I've ever had with an upper Interior administration appointee. So we're hopeful that there might be some movement here. There was a letter that's being recirculated again that was signed by Congressman Calvert, Republican out of Riverside, and Senator Padilla. So we're hopeful, but it's been a struggle to get the Department of Interior and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to recognize this program and all the great work it does, which you wouldn't think we'd have to be pushing the Department of Interior to provide more funding for a program that is their program, but that's government at times, as you all know. So, grant updates, and this is why that 30 by 30 funding is so important. We were, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife allocated a $5 million grant for Anderson Ranch. We're in negotiations with, the family and their investment partners on, acquiring a portion of that ranch at this time, with the goal of acquiring, the whole enchilada with county parks, in partnership with county parks. So land acquisition, reserve system update. Jerry mentioned these properties. We bought out the conservation fund on O'Connell Ranch on May 1st. So we acquired the 1,073 acres in total. We acquired the 1,900 acre Riverside or Lakeside Ranch property from Post, and we closed escrow on that on May 10th. We closed escrow on the 40 acre Barker property, which is adjacent to the Bates Ranch, which we're managing jointly with county parks, on May 20th. We have 3 additional properties that we're in discussions with landowners about. One of them being the aforementioned Anderson property. Quick update on the Burrowing Owl program. The second year of the owl reintroduction in Coyote Valley is in progress, and reports from our burrowing owl team point to this being a banner year for burrowing owl breeding and recovery. There's upwards of 180 birds that are in between, adults and chicks, which would be a record year for us. And so the captive breeding and captive rearing programs, at least for the first couple of years, have been successful. And if we continue with this success and working with our conservation land partners and relocating the birds into South County, I'm hopeful that we can stabilize the population and potentially recover it. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
You're welcome.
Any questions from board members for Mr. Sullivan on his report? None? Anyone from the public?
No.
But thank you. So we'll receive your report. Thank you as always.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next topic and last topic for today is future governing board initiated agenda items. Any board members have any agenda items they'd like to bring up at a future meeting? I hear none. Then we'll meet again September 19th after summer break, and wishing all of you a wonderful summer. Enjoy our summer, and we're concluding the meeting at 3:41 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Careful
Bye-bye.
with the bears.
All right. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.